We're glad to have you back. Now, Nigeria's business environment is inhibited by varying factors that still make business operations difficult 62 years after. Well, the operating environment for businesses has been difficult as the country's economy is still fraught with serious issues of infrastructure deficit, especially with regards to power supply, logistics, the quality of institutions, cost, and access to funds, amongst others. All these have combined to create a burden of competitiveness for the domestic enterprises, a situation many say has made the diversification drive by the federal government very difficult and poses a risk for the risk of vulnerability. Now, for the past 6 decades, Nigeria is still yet to overcome these challenges as they are getting worse, some say, by the day, hampering the growth of businesses, most especially the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which are the lifeblood of the economy. To give us insights into this second topic of discourse as we still stay with Nigeria at 62, just looking at the business environment and what can be done to get it better, he is the Deputy President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He joins us via Zoom, Mr. GABRIEL IDAHOSA. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon.
Yes, well, it's October 4th. I can still wish you happy independence. We are still in that season. It's still around the corner. But I'd like to ask you, as a business person who's been in this for years, what's been the experience like before now? Looking at how we used to move our cocoa, rubber, and all of that in those days, and all of the bureaucracy that we face at the moment, business people keep complaining about that ease of doing business. Where were we before now, and how far have we gone with regards to making doing business in Africa's most populous nation easier?
I think we have to take this in context. Before independence, that is the pre-colonial times and up to 1966 or 1970, when the economy was relatively more smaller than what it is now. The general state of business was pretty organized. You had the two long rail lines from Lagos all the way to Kaduna and all to Kano, and then Port Harcourt all the way to Makurdi and Maiduguri, and all the cocoa and the groundnut or whatever coal were coming on those trains into the ports of Lagos and Port Harcourt. Those ports were much smaller than much smaller than what they are now. The volume of throughput of products that were coming in and out of the country were smaller, much smaller. So businesses were pretty organized. We didn't have all these issues of port congestion and so on. Then, of course, you had the colonial government that ran the country pretty much the way British systems were run. Very little bureaucracy, very little processes involved. It was essentially one economy, the British economy and UK economy, the same currency. We were using just another name, but essentially the British pounds, but with a local name. We didn't have all this complexity. But as we began to gain more and more political independence and started to move away from the British pounds to our own Nigerian currency, the issue of exchange rates came into it. We now started to manage. We now have to manage our own foreign currency that now had started from being 1-to-1 between the Naira and the British pounds. At the time was even stronger than the dollars, because for a British pound, you probably get about $1.40, $1.50 at the very beginning. But that was where we were. And then the economy was moving very smoothly. Then we had the oil boom. We had so much money coming from oil at that point, so we thought we were a very rich country. Quote unquote, our problem at some point was declared to be what to do with the money, that we were getting so much money. Our problem is how to spend it. And so that's essentially the genesis of where all these issues we have now of mismanagement, of lack of control started. We had governments that felt that because we had enough, could do whatever we wanted to do. So we built National Theatre, we had Festac. We started importing rather than eat our traditional Ofada rice. I was always there. We started importing Uncle Ben's rice. We could afford it because we had all the naira that was equal to $1 too. And Uncle Ben's became the standard rice for every middle-class Nigerian. And that's the genesis, actually, of our appetite for all this parboiled rice that came from abroad. Along that came various salary awards. There was the Doji Award and several awards that followed it, increasing staff salaries, because money was there to pay more money to school servants and everybody else. And everybody generally had a good time until, of course, all the excesses caught up on us. And then we had SAP. Babangida had to introduce the structural adjustment program. And then we started from about 4 naira to the dollar at that time. And then it rapidly started falling down. We can't go through all the history. And we now got the situation now, we felt we now have to control the currency. At the beginning, there was no control of currency. You could actually go to UK with your naira and change it right there in Heathrow. A lot of shops in Oxford Street in England were accepting naira. They asked, "Would you have naira?" They were happy to take it because it was as strong as the foreign currency. It was as good as the British sterling. So we all went, even as students, we go to the UK with your pocket money and had a good time. So, of course, a lot of people now, ran into that bonanza, if you like. And we quickly overdid all of it. And then our currency began to fall rapidly against the foreign currencies. And then, of course, the oil boom came to an end. At some point, the price of crude oil crashed to under $10 a barrel from as high as $50, $60, $70 during sometime in the Shagari period. So essentially what happened is that we got lost in the euphoria of oil boom, and we didn't do the things that other countries that have oil, like Indonesia, Malaysia, of course, the Middle East countries did, was use the oil to develop sectors of the economy, whether it's agriculture, or whether it is tourism. Just use oil money to develop other sectors of the economy, because everybody knew that oil is a wasting asset. It will end one day. You keep bringing it out of the ground and selling it. At some point, it was going to end, even if there was no environmental issues. Then came environmental issues, climate change. It was more good business to keep producing more and more fossil fuels and polluting the atmosphere and creating climate change to the level we can now see. So it was a double whammy for countries like Nigeria, who did not make use of the oil at the right time. And at the time, they really needed the oil. Like now, the market for it is moving against us. Because if we had developed the other sectors of the economy, at this time, we will be like Kuwait or Saudi. We will just be using oil as one of the leverages we have. We will have been exporting manufactured goods, like all these other countries that did the right things. So that's where we are coming from. And
okay, let
we are
me
having
follow
pay
up,
heavily.
Mr. Dahosa, if you can hear me, let me follow up and ask you that obviously there was a population explosion or expansion, whichever you agree with me, but was it that there was no proper planning for that population size? Because you're talking about when there was no congestion. An example is the port. Many will say that there was no proper planning, talking about expanding the ports, having dry ports and all of that. What really happened? Then on the other hand, the oil boom, was it a blessing or a curse if we are to look at what we face today?
Well, first of all, with the population, the point about population is that when people say we are overpopulated, they are looking at it relative to our economic size, our economic capacity to produce. Look at the size of Africa as a continent and the size of Asia or the United States of America. Clearly, Africa and certainly Nigeria can do with a much larger population than we even have now if we are productive. if we were producing, India has 1.2, 1.3 billion people. They can feed all of them. they don't have a crisis. So the population, lack of family planning or population planning, something that is being discussed about now because we just did not produce enough food and resources to sustain population growth, which has been steadily at about 3%, 2 to 3%. It hasn't some reason. It has always been around that. And as we are beginning to see, what will actually reduce population growth is education. Education and a higher economic capacity to produce. Because once you are more educated, once you have higher incomes, you realize that you don't need so many children. At the time our population was growing very fast, it was because we needed children to follow us to the farms. So every father wanted a lot of children to follow him to his farm. That was essentially the motivation and the natural situation when we were all farmers in our pre-industrial society. Practically every adult was a farmer or a fisherman, or something has to do with nature. And so the children were our labor force. So having a lot of children was an asset. But that changed very quickly at time as we abandoned the farms and we all moved into the city center. So children were no more following us to farm. They became a burden in our houses, and we had to feed them with food from the city, which we have to buy. Whereas in those days, you just had to go to your farm or go behind your house from the home garden and have food to eat. So yes, lack of planning for our population growth, but more important, lack of growing the economy as fast and even faster than the population growth. So it is that combination of not having the education and the social standard of social living that made having more children unreasonable, which did not come to us right. By the time we found that children are now too much for us to manage, we had lost the opportunity to grow the economy. So we are having to deal with reducing our population growth rates and at the same time growing the economy. The growth of the economy should have come first, as it happened in the rest of the Western world. The growing population made them realize that to enjoy your lifestyle, if you have a lot of income and you want to enjoy it, you want to go on holiday, you want to travel, you want to give your children the best education, nobody tells you to plan your family. You just figure out that, okay, if I have 2 children, I can give them the best education. I can have a good time with them. We can go on holidays. But if I have 10, 15 children, it's a different ballgame. So just more education and a higher income and social lifestyle takes care of population growth. Even within Nigeria, you find that most educated Nigerians, university graduate Nigerians, whether in the north or in the south, just not have as many children as their parents or their counterparts who are illiterate who remain in the village without education. So that's that competition that we missed at the right time, but we are now having to do with it at this time.
Okay, let's wrap up on this note because we're not getting the best with regards to internet quality. Your pictures, but audio fine. We can hear you clearly. But let me ask you this. Some will say a government that has witnessed 2 economic recessions, that's President Buhari's administration, and of course, issues around monetary and fiscal measures all around the globe. Many will say some of these issues are not just, they are globally induced and all of that. So what do you make? Do you think there is light at the end of the tunnel? Whoever becomes the next CEO, what are the quick wins? Let's highlight some of them.
Well, there's definitely light at the tunnel. Nigeria has all the fundamentals. They have not gone away, whether it's markets, whether it's the power of our brain power, the Nigerian brain power across the world is more than enough to make Nigeria. Forget about our natural resources. The sheer brain power of Nigerians that are working all around the world can convert Nigeria into a highly industrialized country. But the management of Nigeria, starting with the government, has been the issue. What are the quick wins? There are a lot of things government is doing now by borrowing that it doesn't have to borrow. For example, the entire telecom system we have now, over 300 million lines, about the fastest growing telecom industry in the world for 5 years, as confirmed by the International Telecommunications Union, was not funded by borrowing. We did not borrow any money to grow our telecom sector. So we do not need to borrow any money to grow our railways. We do not need to borrow any money to grow our airports. We do not need to borrow any money to grow our seaports. All of them can be funded just by licensing, by the way we deal with telecom. So the new government can quickly do that. It can decide that let's put an end to borrowing. Let's give licenses to people who can build and manage railways. Let's give licenses to those who can build and manage ports. That's a quick win that a government can do with very little political controversy. The other thing it can do is to say all the government agencies, all the government commercial enterprises that we have now, we will bring partners, local or foreign. And we will use experience we already have with the Nigerian LNG, where we have 49% and all the partners have 51%. If we do that, we will quickly release a lot of these state-owned enterprises into the hands of people who have experience and the financial capacity to run them efficiently and give us a lot of profit and dividends. The same way Nigeria LNG is giving us profits and dividends. So these two quick wins are there for a government, and they can transform our country very rapidly, the way our telecom industry was transformed. So I think these are the kind of things that we can put on the agenda for the next government. Look at quick wins based on our previous experience with telecoms and public-private partnerships with Nigeria LNG. If those quick wins are taken, then government can begin to address it will free a lot of funding to address issues of salaries for teachers or healthcare or even infrastructure that are social, like primary healthcare, which must be social. But the big items that are making Nigeria to borrow heavily can be reduced and removed once we take those two quick wins. So that's I would say will be the most urgent agenda for the new government.
All right, yeah, at least we're able to get the picture, video and audio back. Thank you so much, Deputy President, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. GABRIEL IDAHOSA. Thank you for your time and do enjoy the rest of your day at work.
Thank you.